Hello and welcome. I'm Skylar Liberty Rose, a coach and a pro-aging advocate supporting women in midlife and beyond. My life has been defined by significant transitions, leaving my first marriage, being hospitalized with severe pancreatitis, changing my birth name, quitting my job to travel India, so many things. And perhaps one of the biggest transitions was leaving London, where I'd lived for most of my life, to move to New York City when I was age 40, 10 years ago. I knew my husband, but almost nobody else, so I was stepping into a completely unfamiliar life. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. What I didn't realize back then was how much I needed to mark that threshold moment, to acknowledge what I was leaving behind and what I was stepping into. Our culture celebrates certain transitions while rendering others pretty much invisible, especially for women in midlife. We have ceremonies for weddings, graduations, but what about the equally significant transitions that shape our middle years? Today, I want to explore the hidden power of marking these transitions, why it matters, and how it can transform our relationship with change. The transitions we don't mark. Think about some of the transitions that have shaped your life in recent years. Perhaps you've experienced an empty nest as your children have left home, or you've navigated the physical and emotional landscape of perimenopause or menopause. Maybe you've pivoted careers, stepping away from a professional identity that defined you for decades. Or perhaps you found yourself in a period of reevaluating who you are and what matters most to you now. These transitions matter. They reshape our identities, our daily rhythms, our sense of purpose. Yet our culture offers few formal ways to honor these passages. Throughout history, women's transitions have often been either medicalized or minimized. Menopause becomes a so-called condition to manage rather than a powerful life passage to honor. An empty nest gets reduced to more free time rather than recognized as the complex emotional landscape that it truly is. When these transitions go unmarked, something important is lost. We miss the opportunity to fully acknowledge what we're experiencing, to make meaning of our changes, to intentionally choose how we want to carry ourselves forward. The science of ceremony. There is fascinating research on why marking transitions matters. Psychologists have found that rituals and ceremonies serve as powerful functions in our lives. When we create intentional space to acknowledge transitions, several things happen. First, we activate the meaning-making centers of our brains. We literally create neural pathways that help us make sense of change, rather than simply being swept along by it. Second, ceremonies help us to process complex emotions. Research shows that ritual activities reduce anxiety during times of uncertainty and change. They give us a container for feelings that might otherwise remain unresolved. Third, ceremonies create what anthropologists call liminal space, which is the threshold between what was and what will be. This space allows us to consciously release aspects of our former identity while intentionally embracing what is emerging. And perhaps most importantly, ceremonies transform passive experiences into active choices. So instead of having changes happen to us, we participate in shaping how we move through them. You don't need elaborate rituals to honor your transitions. Simple practices can be profoundly meaningful. Here are a few approaches you might consider. 1. Create a personal ritual of acknowledgement. This could be as simple as lighting a candle and speaking aloud what you're releasing and what you're welcoming. The act of articulating these transitions gives them weight and presence. You can also use sound in the form of music that resonates with your emotional state, a singing bowl, or your own voice speaking intentions aloud. One woman that I worked with created a simple monthly ritual to honor her post-menopause year by lighting a red candle on the day that her period would have arrived, So she was acknowledging the wisdom that her body was integrating and setting intention for the month ahead. It was a small act that really helped her transform what felt like a loss into a conscious evolution. 2. Write a letter to your past or future self. When I left London for New York, I really wish that I had written a letter to my future self about my hopes, my fears, my general feelings at that time. It's a practice that encourages dialogue across time, and it acknowledges both where you've been and where you're going. Some approaches to consider might be writing a letter to your younger self at the beginning of the transition you're now completing. What would you tell her about the strength she possesses? What wisdom has the journey revealed? You might write to your future self 1 year from now. What seeds are you planting today that she will harvest? What questions do you hope that she'll have answered? You could create a time capsule letter to be opened at a significant milestone, maybe the birthday of your next decade or 5 years into your retirement. My husband and I write a letter to one another every 5 years on our anniversary, and it is such a beautiful practice to open them and read them to one another. The physical act of writing, so ideally using a pen and paper rather than typing, connects us to our thoughts in a much more embodied way. One client created a beautiful practice of writing a letter to herself each solstice and each equinox during her career transition. So she had this written record of her evolution over what was a really pivotal year. 3. Select a symbolic object as a threshold marker. After being diagnosed with a brain tumor and undergoing emergency surgery a few years ago, I always wore a particular bracelet. My bravelet during moments of fear or uncertainty, and there were a lot of those. This bracelet became a reminder of what I'd already moved through and the strength that I could carry forward. Your threshold object might be something from nature, say a stone from a meaningful place, or a shell, a feather, or a plant that symbolizes resilience or renewal. It might be jewelry. It could be a necklace or a bracelet that serves as a tactile reminder of your journey. You could even repurpose an item, something ordinary like a key from your former home that you create a piece of art from. There are so many ways to get creative in how you connect to and honor your experiences. 4. Create intentional space for reflection. Set aside some time, even if it's just an hour, to contemplate your transition. What is ending? What is beginning? What wisdom have you gathered that you want to carry forward? What are you choosing to leave behind? When I moved from New York City to the woods of upstate New York just over a year ago, I found that despite really wanting this move and feeling joyful about relocating, I was also floundering a bit. At that time, I was drawn to the idea of tea ceremonies. I'd seen other people do this, and I really liked the idea of doing it for myself. But I wasn't able to tolerate my much-loved chai anymore since the craniotomy without feeling sick, even if it was decaf. I don't know why. But I found something else that I could drink. Bone broth. And that's how I began a daily ceremony where I would sit and sip my bone broth in my meditation area, and I created a sense of ritual and ceremony around it. When I tell you that this was a huge part of me finding solid ground, solace, and feeling supported during a time of so much upheaval, I am not exaggerating. And it's become one of the most important parts of my day. So don't underestimate the power of contemplation and small ceremonies. 5. Share your transition story with witnesses. It's absolutely true that there are many transitions that benefit from being witnessed by others who can validate and celebrate your experience. You might host a small gathering where friends or family participate in marking your transition. You might record your story through audio or writing or video and share it with others who are navigating similar passages to you. You can use your experience as a connection point. You can work with a ceremony facilitator who can help design a personalized ritual that honors your specific transition with intention and meaning. Being seen and heard during significant life changes can be incredibly validating. This is precisely why I offer customized ceremonies for women in midlife. These ceremonies create dedicated space where your transition is witnessed with intention and care. Unlike generic rituals, these ceremonies are crafted especially for your experience, incorporating elements that resonate with your personal journey and values. Jennifer was someone that I worked with to mark her empty nest transition after her youngest left for college, and she said that having someone design a ceremony specifically for that moment in her life really gave her the permission to fully acknowledge both the grief and the possibility. The ritual helped her honor what motherhood meant for her, while also embracing her emerging identity beyond that role. These ceremonies provide structure for our experiences that our culture often leaves unmarked, so we get to create meaningful containers for processing complex emotions, and then we're better placed to move consciously into the next chapter. So whether it's entering a new decade or navigating physical changes like perimenopause, like menopause, or redefining your professional identity after years in a specific career, customized ceremony transforms what might otherwise be an invisible passage into a meaningful moment that has acknowledgement and intention. I really hope this has been useful for you to get a deeper understanding of how ceremony and ritual might want to be incorporated into your own life. And if you'd like to find out more about the ceremonies I offer, please do head to my website, skylarlibertyrose.com/ceremonies, and all the information is there. Or shoot me an email, skylar@skylarlibertyrose.com, and we can have a call together to talk through it. As always, I love hearing from you. When was a moment in your life that you felt the need for ceremony or ritual to mark a significant change? If you had, what would that have looked like for you? And remember that nobody else gets to define what is significant for you. Your transitional time might not be considered a major milestone in the traditional sense, and that is absolutely fine. Your life and your experiences are yours to mark and make meaning from. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I will see you very soon.